Hey folks, I'm George Smart, host of U.S. Modernist Radio. It's 11 p.m. on a Wednesday night, and my co-host and engineer Tom Guile wasn't watching me when I was watching him input the highly secret 7-digit studio security code. By the way, it's 8675309 because Tom is a former rock and roll DJ. Tonight we're going to have to do all of this on the DL. Don't tell Tom. As I sit in his favorite chair, eat all his Cheetos, and turn random knobs on his complicated and highly expensive sound mixer, you're going to hear 2 bonus interviews recorded in late 2019. First up, run to Google and look up the words Double Diamond Andrew Geller. You'll find a really interesting modernist, maybe postmodern-ish house on Long Island. I first learned about Double Diamond through documentary producer Jake Gorst, who is one of the world's authorities on Andrew Geller. He's also in possession of most of Geller's photos and slides. And also, Geller was his grandfather.
Jake, I am your grandfather. Reject ornamentation and join me on the mod side.
Sorry. I just saw the last Star Wars, and wow, Kylo Ren, you are no Darth Vader. Okay, where was I? I talk in New York with COOKFOX's Luca Baraldo, who directed Double Diamond's renovation and the new modernist house construction adjacent. Next up, we'll visit in sunny Santa Monica with Rocky Rochon, talking the latest in colors and what's popular these days. Does anyone know how to get orange dust off a mixer? It's really in there. Now, you grew up in Italy?
Yes.
And your parents were tailors, is that right?
My mother was a tailor and my father kind of a craftsman. So
okay.
They had a little store together that did a lot of like interiors work, from like upholstery to wall covering to decoration, drapes and so on. So I kind of grew up with them, learning about these skills and this craftsmanship, and forgetting all about them until after I graduated in architecture and started working and kind of finding a new and different appreciation for that kind of craftsmanship.
Now, I noticed that here at COOKFOX, which is a large New York architecture firm, and you're the kind of residential specialist here. You do a lot of private homes and more residential-oriented buildings.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a scale that I love. I love the idea of helping people think how they want to live for their next phase of their life, or help developers and marketing brokerage teams to kind of envision the next building where people could move in and live and think about how we can contribute to their lives. So that is something that I find very exciting, and I'm happy to sort of lead this effort here at COOKFOX together with some of my colleagues.
Now, the Double Diamond House by Andrew Geller, is that the smallest house you've worked on?
It is. Actually, it's interesting. I would never think about it that way, but it's definitely the smallest. It is the smallest house, yes.
Because it's only like 1,200 square feet maybe on the inside?
Less. I think is 700, something like that.
700, yeah, I knew it was very small.
Yeah, it's very small. It's small, but is... the use of space was so masterful that those 700 square feet feel more like 2,000 inside. Is very interesting the way the section of the house, meaning the use of different levels, is done. It makes the house feel from the inside much bigger than what it is. It's just one of the, special qualities of this little building.
The magic of modern design, right?
Yes. It's definitely a magical little house. Yes.
It has attracted attention ever since it was built.
Yes, that's also interesting because we hear people loving it, and we hear people hating it.
Oh, sure.
So it's definitely a polarizing building, and one of the most exciting that I had the pleasure to work on.
Now, originally, I know the family thought about just tearing it down, right? To build a new house.
It's a little more complex than that. I think the son of the original
The Pearl
owner-
Roths, right?
Yes, the poor Roth. Basically, Jonathan inherited the house. He grew up with this house, and although he knew all along that it was a different house from all the ones around, I don't think that he knew that he had a little architectural jewel in his hands. And when
Because for him, it was like normal. It's just what he grew up with,
exactly.
right?
Here's what he grew up with. The house, in all fairness, by the time it got to him, was severely compromised. Some motel units had been added around. The kind of flamboyant, interesting, aspect of the house was no longer legible from the outside. So he probably didn't understand. He didn't have the architectural culture at that point to know that he had a little gem in his hands. And he thought, he started talking with our architects about what to do for that site to accommodate his larger family. And first of all, he engaged Andrew Geller to design for him a second project that then didn't necessarily came to fruition. But I think in that process, he learned more and more about architecture, and talking with other architects about what they could do for a house on that side. Everyone was so impressed with what he had that he eventually understood that he had something precious, and his first instinct was that to donate the original Double Diamond house to the architectural community, and he had actually even arranged for a fundraising to be able to move the house to a new site in Southampton County. So I think it was kind of an educational process for him, and he found a new love for the house by the time he reached out to us, which actually was thanks to Jake Gorse. So it was a very fulfilling experience for us from the time we met with him to the time that the house was restored, and we were able to accommodate a new house on the site behind the original Double Diamond.
Well, I imagine that if Jonathan didn't really know what he had in his hands, as soon as word got out, a lot of people would have told him.
Absolutely. I think it's interesting. He was telling me that when he started talking about doing a fundraising, and he talked to the municipality of Southampton to find a new location for Double Diamond, he was completely astonished by the immediate support and the amount of people that reached out, and they were enthusiastic about the idea of restoring it and moving in a new location. So I think that was the kind of triggering point for him, where he understood that it wasn't just a legacy of his family. He was something that belonged to the community in a larger way.
But at some point, he decided to make it part of the overall complex on the property. How did that come about?
After they did this fundraising event, things didn't pan out because of the economic recession. The fundraising kind of stalled, and the money that they were put into the fundraising were wiped away in a sort of financial bad investment that the person in charge of the fund didn't manage properly. Not at all. Jonathan was involved with that at all. So at that point, they had to restart from scratch, and they had talked with other architects about what to do, if there was a way to integrate the house on site, and I think they hadn't found the right fit yet until they came along at COOKFOX. They met with us. They met with with Rick Cook, who already knew of Andrew Geller. So he was really excited to have the opportunity to talk to the owner of one of his best houses. And I was lucky to be, the sort of architect in the room, listening to those conversations, which were very, very exciting. And our first suggestion was that there was a way to retain the house on site, and that we wanted to make it more visible. We wanted to make it more accessible for the community, and I think that really excited Jonathan and Holly, his wife, and that's, I think, what helped them decide to work with us on this project. I think they felt that we had a genuine appreciation and attachment for the historical house, and that we wanted to make this Perth house have a second life for their new generation of Perth.
What happened next? What was the decision to move it versus to tear it down or give it away?
The first decision, I think there was this idea of moving the house in a more visible location. Part of that was also moving it in a safer location. The site where the house sits is actually bisected by the flood line devised by FEMA. So just by moving it on the other side of this FEMA line, it was considered in a safer location and a higher location that made it by default more visible as well. So I think that was part of the driving force. By putting the house in a safer location, it freed up some area to be able to build a second house as a backdrop for the original Double Diamond house.
Now, can the public visit the house?
There are, it's not open to the public, but Jonathan always organizes some events a couple of times a year.
Okay.
Oftentimes, I've been to one organized together with Jake, where he invites scholars or people interested in modern architecture, or simply people interested, period, to join and visit the house.
Can you see it from the road?
Yes, you can.
You can see. You can drive by.
You can drive by. It's interesting how we talk a lot how the house had changed during the years, but what was interesting is that not just the house, but the entire landscape had changed. So when the house was built, it was in a very prominent location. It was much closer to the beach, and it was, I think, 5-6 feet above ground. By the time we started to work on the house, the dune had grown so much because of the new jetties that were built along the beach that it was 5 feet underneath the level of sand. So they had even added like some passageway from one of the windows to access directly the beach for how much the house looked sunk down into the dune. So we moved in the process of moving it. We also raised it to its original ground level plane, so that you would have, when you are driving by with the car or walking by, you would see exactly how it looked in 1956 when it was built.
Well, it's been certainly an icon of Hampton's architecture forever. And it's so gratifying to see that it's going to be around for another 50 years.
Yes, a lot of, it was a challenge in the restoration of the house itself. The house was never built with the idea that it would last forever. It was built for an era in the Hamptons that is long gone. It was built for, the weekenders that would go out and they just wanted a little shack where they could shower and have a bite and just enjoy the beach. That's all the Hamptons were in, the mid-50s. They weren't a place, for big mansions and networking and fundraising and art events and things like that. It was just fun, playful beach enjoyment, right? So
Oh, the simpler days.
the simpler days. So when the house was built with a teeny tiny budget, for instance, I think what Andrew Geller wanted was to wrap it in copper, but the budget wasn't there for copper, so he used this craft paper used to do flashing, window flashing, and kind of wrap the house with this flashing material to create the illusion that was wrapped in copper. And it looked beautiful for the first couple of years, I think. But Jonathan remembers that very quickly the house started to have leaks inside, and they had to re-roof it and kind of lost the coppery look from the outside. So this time around, we put real copper to mimic exactly the design spacing of the original design, but this time with the real material, and hopefully that will help it to last for many decades.
And I understand that you can rent it out for the summer if you want.
Yes, part of the economical proposition, I guess, that made this project feasible for the Perroth family was that they would need to rent the house out in the summer. So the actual house that they rent is the bigger, the newer house behind, but and currently the Double Diamond house sort of is a beautiful garden architectural sculpture used as a pool cabana for the house. So when you rent the bigger house, you also have
So you rent the whole thing.
You rent the whole thing.
Oh, I
yes.
thought you could just rent the Double Diamond portion for the summer.
No, they actually rent out the whole thing. The reason for it is that as part of the rules of the municipality is that you can only have one inhabitable house per lot, and
That would violate the rules.
that would violate the rules. It also, while it's fun to maybe camp for one night, the house has no air conditioning, is not insulated at all, and I had the privilege to sleep over one night. Let's not say that to the Southampton.
They'll never know.
And it's a wonderful experience, but a little uncomfortable. Not no longer to maybe to the standards that we're used today.
We've gotten a little more spoiled than what we
We got
expect from
definitely-
summer accommodations.
Definitely got more spoiled by our summers in the Hamptons type of expectations.
So has this project led to any other projects of iconic houses or inquiries from them?
We received some more inquiries. For us, this was a special project that we really did because of the great respect and admiration we had for Andrew Geller, because of our relationship with Jake Gornst, and because we kind of fell in love with the Perroth, their story. It's a wonderful story, and we haven't had necessarily the connection with any other project of this type since. So never say never, but at the moment we haven't had the opportunity to work on another similar project.
Well, this is a great success story, and I want to thank you and your firm and Jonathan Perlroth and his family for not tearing it down and for making it live another couple of decades at least.
Oh, for sure. I mean, for sure more. I know how the Perroth have two wonderful sons, Alex and Jesse, and how much they are already attached to the house and how much they love it. So hopefully, this is a generational project and something that will inspire people for decades to come.
Where can people see photos of the house?
on our website, we have a page dedicated to the Perroth house. They can see both the restored double diamond and the house addition behind. I would say that's probably...
And tell them the website.
That comes to my mind. www.cookfox.com.
And you can also see images of the house and Andrew Geller's other projects at usmodernist.org/Geller. Thanks so much, Luca.
Thank you very much for having me.
Hi, this is George Smart with U.S. Modernist Radio, and I'm here at the West Edge Design Expo in Santa Monica, next to the Santa Monica Airport in what's known as the Barker Hangar, which is this beautiful old World War II building that's been repurposed as an expo space. And I'm here with Rochon, who is going to tell us a little bit about colors. And what we're going to start with is the colors that were most popular. We're going to go back about 10 years, Rocky.
Okay.
So tell us about this color from 2009.
Well, this is I would call it a teal blue color. It's an ocean kind of color, Caribbean looking color.
And that was everywhere.
Yeah, definitely.
It seems like it's kind of harkens back to some of the countertops I remember of the 70s or 60s before that, but it's kind of bounced back.
Mm-hmm. It was also, that was a big color in the 80s also, I would say.
Yeah.
Definitely vivid. More vivid, I think, than you see currently.
And as we move forward in time, we've got some desert colors here. We've got this one, which is more of a rose. That's a great desert color. Mm-hmm. And this one, tell me about that one.
Well, this is just kind of a true red. A very true red.
Yeah.
Yeah, and kind of fuchsias.
This middle one here I see is kind of a Frank Lloyd Wright-ish red.
Yeah, I would say that's kind of a historical red.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
In all his buildings.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then we got to shift over here into the whole range of craziness that went on.
Yeah, greens.
Greens.
Fuchsias.
Fuchsia.
Purples.
And
kind of yellows.
Yellows. So we're up to about 2013, 2014 here.
Yeah.
And then we hit this schism here with these two colors, the same year.
Yeah.
So what are these?
This is a blue and a pink.
You might see
the unisex year, apparently.
and more recently, we've got this one.
Yeah, more
periwinkle.
Yeah, more purpley blue.
Purpley blue. Mm-hmm. Well, you approach colors in a more unique way than just what's on the top of the charts. How do you use it in your practice?
I don't believe in color trends. I'm kind of an anarchist when it comes to that whole theory of color. I believe color is something that a person has a relationship with. So when you start talking about trending, it removes the person from the equation. I've never been a generalist. I think our theory in paint is actually trying to help the person who is looking to paint a room or a home to help facilitate what speaks to them personally. And that can be a very emotional kind of reaction to paint and color. It also can be very contextual. It could be because there's other colors in the environment around it that are going to help facilitate what you're going to pick. Light in particular, particularly artificial light, has a huge effect on paint colors, particularly with the LED world we're living in right now. We have light sources that most people aren't really familiar with and don't know how they're going to affect their paint colors much. So we're really big believers in not only helping people make the tough decision about what am I going to do here when I'm looking at a wall of paint colors, but also give them the kind of technical background to help them make decisions in terms of engaging their light, doing brush outs on a wall, seeing what happens on different walls, on a ceiling, so that they can actually see it physically, coming to life in front of them. So color to me is very, very nuanced, and also very specific to an environment.
So how does the average person who's trying to pick colors for their home avoid rookie mistakes involving light and color?
What we recommend the first thing when I work with people as a designer, the first thing I have them do is look at imagery. Start looking at imagery, rooms and spaces and homes that they like the feeling of. That when a customer can come to us with some of that imagery, we can start to help them take a look at what colors in certain palettes will achieve the feeling of what they want that to be. I'm a big believer in feelings. I'm a very technical person, and I believe in engineering a paint color, but the first part of it is, how does the color make you feel? So the imagery is a really good step to start looking at helping a person facilitate getting to a color. Okay. And then you get into the nuance. So if someone is looking at a color that's, let's say a gray tone, that they want to put with their Carrera marble in their kitchen, we would pool a collection of probably 2 or 3 of the paint colors within our group. We would give them a sampler or a quart or large brush outs to take to their home, put it in front of wherever that stone is, and start moving it around the room and see what happens.
And how can they experiment with different types of light sources to see the effect of it on the color?
Well, when you're doing a brush out is the most effective way to look at a color in a room. Literally paint it on a room, and also make sure you do it on 2 or 3 different opposing walls, because depending on how the light is coming into the room, it's going to affect that color. Color is just simply the reflection of light. And so when you change a light source from, let's say, daylight to an artificial light, that can completely change the color of that color in the room, which is a big component of the color work we do. It's called metamerism. So we first tell them paint the brush outs, and then look at it during the day, and then look at it in the evening in the light it's going to be seen under. It doesn't matter what other light's in the home. If it's not in that room, it's insignificant. So it's whatever the light will be in the evening in that room that you want to see it under.
I know my wife and I went to Target and bought a couple little $10 lamps and different kinds of light bulbs. Mm-hmm. And then we could experiment with those, showing them against the walls. And it was a really dramatic difference.
Yes, it is.
In how these lights affected the colors.
Or at the paint laboratory, what we do is we actually have a light booth that has different light sources in it, and then we talk to our customers, have them give us the light bulb they're using in the room, the predominant light source. We plug it into the light booth, and we engineer and build a color for them. So it isn't just the paint that's affected in the room, it's also the fabrics that go with it, the carpets, all those different materials, because they're made up of actual particulates, they're going to reflect light differently. One paint company's paint will reflect differently than another paint. The formula and the combination of the colorants you're putting into it will affect how it reflects that light. So what we do is we actually take the light source, put it in our light booth, and then they start building the paint color under the actual light source. That
must be fun to be one of your folks working the light booth and doing these little experiments.
Well, that's a headache.
I can think of like science lab in high school.
Yeah, it is very much like that. Yeah. There's a big part of it, to me, and that's why when we talk about color trending, I kind of recoil a little bit, because to me, as a designer for 30-some years, it's always been, it goes much deeper than what a trend is. In fact, even in my own work, I have 600 paint colors here. I am doing custom colors every day of the week. I'll come in and go, it's not that, it's got to be quite not that. We twist it here, we put it in the light booth, we do this. So it's an infinite number of paint colors to achieve what you want.
Well, Rocky, how can people find you?
We have a studio here in West Hollywood that is at 306 Robertson. And then we also have our headquarters in Seattle, Washington.
And what's your website?
The website is thepaintlaboratory.com.
All spelled out?
Mm-hmm, thepaintlaboratory.com.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate talking with you.
Yeah, nice to meet you.
Visit usmodernist.org's massive archives to hear past shows, discover 7,000 mid-century modernist houses, and access 2.6 million pages of classic 20th century architecture magazines. US Modernist Radio is produced by Soundtracks Recording Studios in Raleigh, North Carolina. Our theme song was performed by George Smart and Robinson Earl. Guest research led by Cindy Stratton, not a real name. An enigma to some, feared by others. U.S. Modernist Radio is a production of Modernist Archive, a nonprofit educational archive for the documentation, preservation, and promotion of modernist residential design. I'm Tom Guild. George and I'll be back soon with more quirky guests and another edition of U.S. Modernist Radio.